let's be direct here today. You don't relapse because you're weak. You relapse because you believe that you're not worth protecting. Self worth, self respect, and self confidence are not motivational buzzwords. They are literally relapse prevention tools. And if you don't build those intentionally, you will compromise yourself in ways that you swore you never would. The more self-respect you have, the less you override your gut instinct. When you have a high level of self-respect, you don't ignore red flags. You do not stay where you're tolerated. You don't chase people who are unsure about you, and you do not put yourself in an environment where a relapse is possible. Okay, let me expand on this. So, when when I was in active addiction, no, let me even back it up even further. You guys hear me talk about identity a lot because it's just so important. When, I built my entire identity around substances. So when I got sober, there was nobody left. When I got sober, there was nobody left from my past. And and I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying anything about anybody else but myself. What I'm saying is that I built my entire identity around substances. So what does that look like? That looks different for everybody, but for me it was, you know, any relationship that I had was conducive to substance abuse. I mean, and I might not have consciously built my personal relationships in that way, but that's just, after years and years and years of use, that's where I ended up. So when I talk about not putting myself in relapse in an environment where a relapse is possible, my home is my safe space. My home is a fortress. There's no funny business here at all. And even further than that, I don't have anybody in my circle that uses. It's just not an option for me. And when I first was getting sober, I was thinking like, obviously this is going to have to include some people in my family, and that was the hardest part, because I still feel guilt about that, but you I got to a point to where I realized, my life is just withering away. And at some point I have to build something that's for me, you know? And that's okay. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have boundaries with family members or with anybody, and in order to be able to do that, you have to obviously build a foundation, but understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you, what's dangerous for you and what's safe for you, and you have to build your fortress around that. And like that's what I've done. I no matter what's going on outside of my house, I know that when I come home, there's peace here. There's safety here. I don't have to worry about nothing here. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And I went through a lot of steps to get to where I'm at with that. I obviously jail to treatment to treatment to treatment and then to sober living, and then from sober living, you know, eventually I got back on my feet, and that's where I'm at today, and that's where I'm going to stay today. I can have confidence that, I don't got to come here and worry about being in an environment where a relapse is even a thing. So hold on, before you do that, do you wanna add anything to what I just said about, I'm talking about relapse, an environment where a relapse is possible, and how our home is, this is where we're at, this is where we're safe, like.
I think um, you said, it's your safe place, it's your peace. I think peace should come first before anything, because like if you don't have peace within yourself, your whole life is chaotic. And even if you don't think so, if you're not peaceful with yourself, you bring you with you, no matter where you go. And like you're you're gonna bring chaos everywhere you go if you're not a peaceful person on the inside. You don't have a relationship with somebody that's higher than yourself.
So let me ask you this in just a few words. What do you how does it feel to walk into how does it feel to walk through the door of our home? No matter where we're at, it doesn't matter if we're coming from a stressful situation or a good situation. How does it feel? What are the feelings you get when you walk in our door every day?
I can breathe. There's like not this weight that I have to like put on. Like it's almost like putting on a mask, but
Mm-hmm.
not really.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't care. But like it's like a breath of fresh air.
It is. It's like I can breathe
I
here
can
too.
breathe.
You know.
It's.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that?
Hmm.
I remember this video of this guy talking. You were playing, and he said like, Yahweh. The first thing we do is take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And when we connect, and that's exactly how I feel when I walk through this door. It's like.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree. So it's really important to create an environment for yourself that you know you're safe in. You know, but when your self-respect and your self-esteem and your self-worth is low, you're much quicker to a compromise within here. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying me. Like I'm saying like when my self-respect is low, I will compromise what's really inside of me. I have. I will say yes when my intuition tells me no. I will overextend myself. I will overprove myself or overperform, and eventually I will resent it. And if I'm being honest, I still struggle, with overperformance because and I learned through counseling that it's a trauma thing. It's a trauma response. I spent the majority of my young adulthood and my adulthood in active addiction with felonies. So it's safe to say that I didn't have the greatest opportunities for gainful employment. I got my first felony when I was 18 years old. And things are a little different now. It's easier to get a job now with a felony than it was, you know, when I was 18 years old, but it just I never really had the greatest opportunities for gainful employment. So when somebody gives me a chance, I feel like I have to prove myself, or I feel like I worry that they're going to change their mind about me and find somebody else. So, this is just something personal that I go through, and I'm sharing it with you because I just think it's important to talk about. And where I'm at today is the more self-respect that I build within myself, the easier it is to know that, I have opportunities today. I have opportunities today, good ones. I have a great job that I love, that I'm grateful for. And I am I'm needed today, and that's a good feeling. I'm needed in a gainful way. I'm proud to say that. If you end up just overdoing it, that turns into resentment. The resentment becomes stress, and stress becomes emotional overload, and emotional overload looks for relief, and you know where that's headed. That's where addiction lays in wait. Like I said earlier, I spent most of my life without the greatest opportunities, especially when it comes to employment. So now I overcompensate and I go above and beyond, and I work harder than that's probably necessary. And I try to prove myself before anyone questions me because, somewhere in me is a belief that they're going to change their mind about me. And that belief doesn't come from confidence. It doesn't come from self-respect. It comes from old trauma. Like I said, it makes me overwork, overgive, overperform until I'm exhausted. There's days. It happens usually about once a month for me. There's days where I'll come home and I'm just so exhausted that I'll get a shower after work and I will go straight to bed, and I will not get out of bed. I will not get up until it's time to go to work the next day. You got to really I really have to pay attention to that because, burnout is real. Sometimes I think that I am invincible and I know that I'm not, and it's not just work too, because, there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to do outside of work. I'm trying to build my brand and my channel and my life outside of work, because you can't just have work be everything. You have to find a balance. I have to find that balance. Um, and I'm trying to, I'm not gonna say I'm trying. I'm doing a lot of really cool things. I with my journal. I'm really working to get my journal into treatment centers, into different drug court programs, because it's something that really helped me, and I really believe in that journal. And I might have shared some of this before, but my long-term goal is to build treatment centers and to build sober living houses like the ones that helped save my life. And I want to hire people who are in recovery, because as an addict, it's easier to open up to somebody that's went through what you've went through. And I also think that to have a purpose, finding my purpose really saved my life. There's a lot that goes into staying sober, but the whole game changes when you discover what your purpose is. And I truly believe that God preserved me through heroin addiction so I can do exactly what we're doing right now. Low self-worth creates two common recovery traps: people pleasing sobriety. You get sober to earn approval. The month coin, the 2 month coin, the clap, the hugs, and in the moment approval feels threatened, your stability is shaken. And then you have performance based identity. If I'm not impressive, I'm replaceable. And that's something that I struggle with. And that belief is heavy too. And when you are carrying that kind of weight long enough, your nervous system is going to look for relief. I want to say that for me, addiction was never just about substances. It was about relief from the pressure of not feeling like I was ever going to be enough. But on a positive note, let's talk about how we build self-respect. Self-respect is built when you keep promises to yourself. Self-respect is built when you say no, even if it costs you. When you leave, if your gut tells you, get out of there. Self respect is built when you stop auditioning for belonging. Confidence is built from evidence. I talk about evidence all the time. Confirmation bias. Your brain is wired to continually search for evidence that supports your beliefs. That's why it's so important how we talk to ourselves. It's way more important how we talk to ourselves than how anybody can talk to us. Because what you say to yourself all day, your brain is going to naturally look for evidence to support that belief. Self-respect is built from boundaries. And boundaries protect sobriety, which in turn protects your life. The stronger your self-respect becomes, the less you will compromise your peace. The less you compromise your peace, the less you need relief. This is also why I push journaling so hard. Expressive writing research shows many benefits. Decreased anxiety and depression symptoms, improved emotional regulation, lower stress levels, greater clarity in decision making. Why? Because journaling is a place where you can organize your thoughts on paper. And it also helps with an improved concept of self because you're able to organize the thoughts on paper and go back and read it. Put a date on it every single time. I don't care if you write one sentence, please put a date. It's important to be able to see how far you've come. When you write, honestly, you stop gaslighting yourself. For me, I was able to start seeing patterns of behavior that have plagued me patterns of behavior that have caused me harm my whole life. Once they're on paper, it's a lot harder to ignore those. I was able to identify where I was overcompensating. You build self-awareness, and self-awareness builds respect. You build self-awareness, and self-awareness builds self-respect. If you're really serious about wanting to work through these things, I created a journal that I'm very proud of. I talk about it all the time. The link is in my bio. I will link this in the description. It's lightly guided. It gives you some benefit. It tells you right in the beginning some benefits of journaling. It's got a declaration of intent, which I think is important. It's got some affirmations in here. We give you a toolbox, and we give you a space to create your own toolbox, which is really important because everybody's toolbox is going to be different. We got a space for affirmation of the day because when I was in early recovery, I was completely broken and in void of all self-respect, full of shame and guilt. And I learned that it takes, I think, 21 or 28 days to build a new habit. We damage our neural pathways when we use, but you can repair these neural pathways, and I found a way to do that. This is what I did. I'm right-handed, so for 28 days, I brushed my teeth with my left hand. I took 25 exaggerated breaths in through my nose and out through my mouth, and then I looked in the mirror and I said 10 nice things to myself. I did that for 28 days, and then eventually I stopped keeping count, and it changed everything for me. So that's why I think it's important to have a spot to write an affirmation for yourself for the day. And all that means is just anything. I am kind. I am loving. I love myself. A spot for a gratitude list because gratitude is huge. Gratitude gratitude is huge. When you listen, man, going back to the confirmation bias, you have a choice every day when you get up. Whether you want to see life through a lens of misery or through a lens of gratitude. And trust me, there's no lack of things to be miserable about, but there's also plenty to be grateful for. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves. So that's why I have a spot in here where you can write it down on paper. One goal that I can focus on for today. Very important. Very important. I start my day every day with an accomplishment. I think it's so important to start your day with an accomplishment. You should make your bed every day. Every single morning, the first thing you do, make your bed and then hit your knees. And just thank God for giving you another chance to be a decent human being. I'm proud of this journal. And if you want to help support the channel, that is a huge way to do that. And if you're interested in donating journals to the treatment facility in my area or in your area, please reach out to me. I would love to help facilitate that. I will donate with you. You know, I'll match you. If you want to donate 10 journals, I'll donate 10 journals. I just want to get these books in people's hands because it really helps save my life. You know, and I want to do something new. You know, if you've ever struggled with self-worth and recovery, if you've ever overperformed because you were scared of being replaced, if you have compromised your intuition and paid for it later, please email me your story. Email your story to thegandeeshow@gmail.com. You can stay anonymous. I can omit any identifying information. I would love to share your story. Our testimonies is what helps save people's lives. Listen, recovery changed for me when the first time I heard somebody tell my story on stage, somebody I had never met told my story. It opened my mind. That's why our testimonies are so important. I really want to start uploading twice a week instead of once a week. And, you know, we're going to do our normal thing here on Sunday like we always do. But I want to upload maybe on a Wednesday also, and I want to start reading stories. I want to start sharing real life stories in recovery. And, you know, I need your help. So anybody who's willing to share their testimony, it could help save somebody's life, please email us at thegandeeshow@gmail.com. When one person speaks honestly, it gives another person the permission to heal. You do not protect something that you do not believe is valuable. If you want long-term sobriety, you have to start believing that you are worth protecting. And that belief is absolutely built. It's not something that just gets dropped in your lap. It's not something that you can pray for and God just waves a magic wand and says, well, here you go. This is something that you have to build. Because anything worth keeping is going to take work. And that's how it should be. Anyways, I love you. I'm out.